So far, up to this year, we've taken a look at different types of adjectives. We took a look at 2-1-2 adjectives, the us, ums. We also took a look at third declension adjectives. Well, let's review this before we introduce our new topic. Noun-adjective pairs are going to be determined by agreement. And by agreement, we mean gender, number, and case. So remember, gender can be masculine, feminine, or neuter, number, singular, and plural, and then case, no nominative, genitive, dative, etc. We are going to introduce now what are called IUS adjectives, or I simply like to break them together as just IUS words. These words are going to be a little different because they make two major changes when they decline. First, the genitive singular will be IUS straight across for all of them. And also the dative singular changes to the letter I. These are the two major changes that consistently take place throughout the declining of all of these words. Take a second to copy this chart down or take a screenshot because these are the most important IUS words that we're going to see right now as adjectives. Together, they make a little saying, Unus Nauta, one sailor. These words are all going to be IUS adjectives, which means that when we decline them, the genitive singular is going to change to IUS as the ending, and the dative singular will be I. Everything else is pretty much the same as we learned it, and we're going to take a look at those in a few moments. Here is the basic overall declining pattern. If you take a look, here's our us, column, and here are the plurals, us, ums. If you notice, everything in the plural is exactly the same as it would normally be. I, orum, is, os, is. I, orum, is, as, is. A, orum, is, a, is. But over here, if we take a look at the singulars, we have it blank because sometimes it'll end with an R, normally an A, but there sometimes might be a change. Notice how the genitive singular is all IUS, and the dative is all the letter I. But now we're back to the normals, o, o. It might help for us to take a look at this with it actually placed onto a word. So let's look at unus. Unus means one, so obviously there's no plural chart to this. If we take a look, we would expect this to be us, e, o, o. But because this is an IUS word, the only change that takes place is that we change the genitive to IUS and the dative to an I. Everything else would be as you expect it. This would be I, back to but again, notice the change. Here we're going to take a look at nullus, which means no, none. Us, eus, e, o. Everything's the same except for the eus and the e. Plurals all the same from what we've already learned this year. There are also two other really big adjectives that we need to take a look at that do follow this pattern with a couple slight exceptions. These two words are hic, haec, hoc, meaning this, and ille, illa, illud, meaning that. Notice how they are a little strange and patterned with their endings. Hic is the masculine, haec is the feminine, hoc is the neuter. For that, ille, masculine, illa, feminine, illud, neuter. First, let's take a look at ille, illa, illud, and all of these words here mean that. The same thing follows. We've got the eus in the genitive and the I in the dative. Everything else would follow pattern. Just be careful that this is ille and this is illud. Down here, everything according to pattern. Now, hic, haec, hoc is slightly different. Again, we have the issue of the nominatives all being weird. But if you notice, almost every single word in the singular chart ends with the letter C, except for the genitive across the board. So we've got hic, haec, hoc, huius, 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 huic, 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 hunk, honk, hock. This AN, think of it almost as the AM, but with a C put on it. And then we've got our ablatives by adding a C to it. Plurals are almost the same as what we would normally see, except notice how we're using hike here instead of what we would think would be ha. Make sure you copy this chart down, because since this is so irregular, so different, but not too different at the same time, we want to make sure that we have a good note of this in our notebook. Now there's also one more word that we're going to take a look at for now. This is ipse, ipsa, ipsum, which means himself, herself, itself. Normal pattern, pretty much, again, except for the IUS and the I. And everything down here is normal as to what you would expect it to be. So, in the end, certain adjectives that we're going to see this year follow a declining pattern that use IUS as the genitive and I as the dative. All the same rules for translation still apply. Make sure we're taking a double look at these demonstratives, hic, ille, and ipse also.